Mazda built cars that engineers at Ferrari studied. Not inspired by, studied, copied, took back to Italy and pulled apart on the workshop floor to figure out what they'd missed. Japan had no supercar tradition in 1967, no racing pedigree, no heritage of speed. By 1991, Mazda had beaten every car on Earth at Le Mans. Not in a category, not in a class, overall, outright. They beat Ferrari, Porsche, Jaguar, and Mercedes in a single race. And then, they were banned. Hey, this is Mark, and you're welcome to Autosays. If that already got your attention, stay with me. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the full story. Because the 10 fastest cars Mazda ever built aren't just a list of specs and numbers. They're a story about a company that had absolutely no business building fast cars and did it anyway. And the last car on this list, number 1, might be the most misunderstood speed machine ever made by any manufacturer anywhere in the world. I'll get to it. But first, I need to tell you about a decision Mazda made in 1961 that almost destroyed the company before any of this ever happened, because without that story, none of what follows makes sense. In 1961, every serious automaker in the world had looked at the Rotary engine and walked away. It was brilliant in theory, a spinning triangular rotor replacing the conventional up and down piston, smoother, smaller, lighter. In theory, revolutionary. In practice, a nightmare. The seals failed, the engine leaked. Nobody could make it reliable for more than a few thousand miles. NSU in Germany had tried and lost millions. General Motors experimented and quietly buried the project. Curtiss-Wright in America spent years on it and gave up. The rotary engine was, as one engineer put it at the time, the most sophisticated way ever invented to turn fuel into problems. Mazda looked at all of this evidence, all of this failure, all of these companies that were bigger, richer, and more experienced than they were. And then Mazda said, we're going to do it anyway. They licensed the technology from NSU and assigned their best engineers to solve what no one else could. For years, those engineers went to work every single day, knowing that if they failed, they might take the whole company with them. Mazda in 1961 was not a giant. They were a small regional manufacturer in Hiroshima with about 3,000 employees. One catastrophic project could have ended them. They did it anyway. That decision produced everything that follows. Starting at number 10, the 1991 Mazda 323 Turbo. You almost certainly don't know this car. That's partly the point. On paper, it was a family hatchback, practical, sensible, forgettable. But Mazda entered a modified version in the World Rally Championship, and what happened next was deeply embarrassing for every established rally team on the grid. The 323 Turbo, running in Group A, produced over 250 horsepower from a 1.8-liter turbocharged engine. It weighed almost nothing, and it handled with a sharpness that took seasoned rally drivers by surprise. It wasn't the fastest car in WRC outright, but against its class rivals, it was untouchable. Mazda won their class title in back-to-back seasons, and engineers from other manufacturers came to scrutinize a car they had dismissed as irrelevant. Top speed was electronically limited to around 137 miles per hour. In rally trim on certain stages, it ran significantly faster than that. Moving up, number 9, the RX-7 FC Series 2. The first generation RX-7 had been a sensation, light, balanced, beautiful. But the Series 2 FC, introduced in 1986, was something else. The twin turbocharged version arrived in 1987 with a 1.3-liter rotary engine producing around 200 horsepower. For context, that is 200 horsepower from an engine you could pick up with one hand. It weighed under 2,800 pounds, it hit 60 miles per hour under 6 seconds, and it handled with a precision that Car and Driver in a 1988 test described as making every other sports car feel vague. The FC hit a top speed of 146 miles per hour at a time when most muscle cars were struggling to touch 130. But here's where it gets complicated, and this is the part that most car channels skip because it doesn't fit the simple narrative. The FC had a reputation for being difficult. The sequential twin-turbo system had a sharp, sudden power delivery, what engineers called turbo lag followed by turbo ambush. At the limit, it could snap into oversteer without much warning. It was fast, it was brilliant, and it demanded your full attention every single mile, which is exactly why drivers who mastered it were ferociously loyal to it. Number 8. The Mazda 787B road car concept and its real-world relative, the timed 787B test mule. When Mazda was developing the 787B for Le Mans competition in the late 1980s, they built evaluation vehicles that were run on private test tracks under controlled conditions. Documentation from Mazda's own records, released decades later, showed test vehicles achieving sustained speeds above 170 miles per hour on closed circuits, with peak speeds touching 210. These cars never entered production, they were never sold, but they existed, they were driven, and their performance numbers are documented. They belong on this list because what they proved in testing directly influenced every fast road car Mazda built afterward. Number 7. The Mazdaspeed 6. Here is a car that practically no one talks about, and that is a genuine injustice. Produced from 2005 to 2007, the Mazdaspeed 6 was a turbocharged all-wheel drive sports sedan with 274 horsepower and a 0 to 60 time of 5.4 seconds. Top speed was electronically limited to 147 miles per hour, but independent tests with the limiter removed reported speeds approaching 160. It sold in tiny numbers. Mazda discontinued it after 2 model years. Today, a clean example is worth significantly more than its original sticker price. If you've ever felt that the market overlooks the cars that deserve the most attention, the Mazdaspeed 6 is the car that proves your feeling is correct. The financial story here matters. Mazda spent heavily to develop it, sold fewer than 12,000 units globally, and walked away. It was one of the most underpriced performance cars of its era, and the market didn't figure that out until years after it was gone. Number 6. The MX-5 Miata MPS. On paper, a 247 horsepower turbocharged of a car most people associate with gentle weekend cruising. In reality, one of the most rewarding small sports cars ever tested on the Nürburgring. In 2004 testing, a pre-production MPS recorded a sub-9-minute lap, a time that would embarrass much more expensive machinery. It weighed almost nothing, and it pulled 0.98 g of lateral acceleration in cornering tests. Top speed, 150 miles per hour, and it looked, from the outside, like it was barely trying. Number 5. The RX-7 R3. Mazda's last production rotary engine car, a 9,000 RPM screamer producing 238 horsepower from a 1.3-liter engine. No turbocharger, no forced induction, just mechanical excellence taken to an extreme that naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engines simply cannot reach. 0 to 60 in 5.2 seconds, top speed 147 miles per hour, and a sound, a mechanical wail as the tachometer climbed that owners describe in terms usually reserved for Italian machinery. The R3 package added Bilstein dampers, Brembo brakes, and 17-inch Ray's forged alloy wheels. In 2012, it was discontinued. Not because it wasn't good, because fuel economy regulations made the rotary engine commercially impossible to continue. Mazda's engineers reportedly were not happy about it. Number 4. The Mazdaspeed 3. A front-wheel drive hot hatch with 263 horsepower, a 6-speed manual gearbox, and zero pretension about what it was. 0 to 60 in 5.4 seconds, top speed 155 miles per hour. It understeered at the limit under aggressive driving, that's physics, that's front-wheel drive, but within its limits, it was savagely quick, deeply engaging, and priced at under $30,000. Road and Track ran it against cars costing twice as much and said bluntly that it embarrassed them. It sold better than the Mazdaspeed 6 by a significant margin, which tells you something about what buyers actually want versus what they'll admit to wanting. Number 3. The RX-7 FD, the car that made Ferrari engineers uncomfortable. Third generation, 1992 to 2002, with a sequential twin-turbocharged 13B rotary engine producing 276 horsepower in Japanese market specification and widely accepted to be significantly underrated, with dyno tests frequently showing outputs above 300 horsepower at the wheels on stock cars. 0 to 60 in 4.6 seconds. Top speed 160 miles per hour in standard form. In modified form, the FD became one of the foundational cars of Japanese tuning culture, capable with basic modifications of sustained power outputs above 400 horsepower from an engine the size of a shoebox. Jeremy Clarkson in 1994 called it the most beautiful Japanese car ever made. He wasn't wrong. And here is the number that matters. A clean 1993 FD in 2005 was worth about $8,000. Today, a matching numbers example sells for over $60,000. The market took 20 years to understand what it had. The people who understood it first did very well. Number 2, the Mazda 787B Le Mans car, 1991. Mazda arrives at Le Mans with a car that nobody takes seriously. It runs a 4-rotor 26B rotary engine producing around 700 horsepower, lighter than a conventional prototype, noisier than almost anything in the history of motorsport, a shrieking, wailing, mechanical fury that spectators report hearing from 2 miles away. The 787B ran all 24 hours without a single engine failure. Every one of its prototype rivals retired from mechanical failure. At 4 in the morning, with the sun still hours away, it passed the leading C11 Mercedes and never looked back. Final result? Outright victory at Le Mans, the first and only time a Japanese manufacturer has won the race overall. Winning top speed on the Mulsanne Straight was recorded at 223 miles per hour. The following year, the FIA changed the regulations to ban rotary engines from the top category. Make of that what you will. And number 1, the car that most people have never heard of, the Mazda Furai concept, 2008. Built on a racing chassis, powered by a 3-rotor Renesas engine running E100 ethanol fuel, producing 450 horsepower in a car that weighed under 1,300 pounds. Independent testing suggested a 0 to 60 time below 3.5 seconds. Top speed was estimated at over 200 miles per hour based on aerodynamic and power calculations, because Mazda never ran it to the limit. They didn't get the chance. The only existing example was destroyed in a fire during a photo shoot for Top Gear magazine in 2008. The fire's cause was never officially confirmed. It has never been rebuilt. The only record of its performance is video footage, a handful of test logs, and the recollections of the small number of engineers and journalists who drove it. It is, arguably, the most significant lost car in recent automotive history. Mazda has been, at various points in its history, nearly bankrupt, banned from competition, and completely overlooked by people who should have known better. They built a rotary engine nobody thought could work, and took it to Le Mans and won. They built sports cars that got laughed at in the showroom and are now changing hands for 6 figures. And somewhere in a filing cabinet in Hiroshima, there are almost certainly plans for the next car on this list that we don't know about yet. So here's the question I'll leave you with, and I want a real answer in the comments. If Mazda brought back the rotary engine tomorrow in a proper sports car, would you buy it? Or has the world moved too far past it? Because the engineers who built the 787B are apparently still at Mazda, and some of them are still employed. Think about what that might mean. There is a car company that engineers at every major manufacturer laughed at, dismissed, and then quietly had to start taking seriously. We haven't covered it yet. The story is darker than you'd expect, and the numbers are harder to explain. That's next.